Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Angus, and a while back I did a review of all of the Roald Dahl novels, and I thought now would be a great time to revisit that, but with my favourite author currently, not my favourite author as a child, who would be Stephen King, of course. If you know anything about me, you know that I have 5 bookshelves full of Stephen King's books, and I've read about 20 of them, 19, so we're going to go through them all today and rank them in a tier list.
Okay, this is editing Angus, just here to say that my chair squeaks a lot in this video. I promise it's not me farting. It's the chair.
So you can see down the bottom here I have all of the book covers, and here we have all of the tiers. At the top we have Atomic Bomb in a good way, and at the bottom we have Atomic Bomb in a bad way. Now if you've read Stand, you know what I'm talking about, but if you don't, that doesn't matter. Just know, very good at the top, very bad at the bottom. Under Atomic Bomb in a good way we've got Holy Guacamole, as in Holy Guacamole, that was amazing. Then we have Slightly Memorable, and because I think that's the worst trait that a book can have. One of the worst traits is being boring and unmemorable. And then we have Oh Yeah, I Read That, below Slightly Memorable, even less memorable, even meaning it was, all the factors were worse. And then we have Atomic Bomb in a bad way at the very bottom, of course. So let's go ahead and start out with the book I finished by King most recently, The Stand, his longest novel, about 1,300 pages. And see, when I first finished it, I thought I would put it in Holy Moly Guacamole, and that it didn't actually live up to the standards. But now as I think about it and reflect on it over a couple of weeks, I realise that it has earned its spot, for sure, in the Atomic Bomb in a good way category. Next, I'm going to go ahead with It, possibly the most famous Stephen King book. And this is my favourite, so it's going to go right at the top of the Atomic Bomb in a good way tier. Now, just because Stephen King is my favourite author doesn't mean that all of his books are going to be in the top tiers. For example, we come to The Colorado Kid, his first published with the Hard Case Crime publishing house. And, this book, it was a slog to get through, if I'm honest. It is, I think I can safely say, the worst of his books that I've read. It was just pointless. It was just 180 pages of just faffing about. So yeah, Colorado Kid in the very bottom. Now we get to the meat of the tier list, filling out the middle sections. We have his second of 3 current publications with Hard Case Crime, Joyland, which I do know that I enjoyed reading it, but I cannot tell you a whole lot about it. So I'm going to put it in the slightly memorable category. Followed up by later, the third and final Hard Case Crime Stephen King book. I'm going to put it slightly behind it, because I think Joyland was just a bit funner overall. Okie dokie. Heading into the Dark Tower series, we have the first book. I have completed the first 3, trying to get through the 4th. God, they are long tasks to get through. The Gunslinger, I do remember that I read it. So, you know what, I think we actually need to edit this tier and just make it memorable. I think that's better. Because I do think The Gunslinger was memorable, but I just don't think it was very, very good. It was just very convoluted. And, of course the prose was King's, his most formal and classical. But that made it a bit tough to get through. In contrary to the drawing of the 3, second book in the Dark Tower series, holy moly guacamole. If you thought that Old King Could Write was coked up horror, this is some coked up fantasy thriller. Moving on to a classic, one of King's most well-known books, we have The Green Mile. This is one of the only Stephen King books that made me cry. And for that, it definitely needs to go in the holy guacamole tier, just for how important it is, and just what an amazing story and concept. So simple, but so brilliantly executed, which I think is one of King's really big strong suits. Speaking of King's writing, we have one of his non-fiction books on writing, part autobiography, subtitle A Memoir on the Craft. This one I enjoyed the first 100 pages or so, which was like the autobiography section, but then he started talking about grammar and just stuff that, I could find in a textbook. So I'm going to put it in, it feels wrong to put it that low, so maybe I put it at the bottom of the memorable tier, because it was, slightly less memorable than all the others. Pet Sematary was the first Stephen King book I read a couple of years ago, so I don't remember that much about it, but I do remember that it was a holy moly guacamole for sure. Some of the scariest stuff he's written, definitely right above there, about equal with The Green Mile. I could go either way on those two. Now this is going to be a controversial take. If you saw my books I read in 2020 video, you will know my thoughts on The Shining already, and they haven't changed. I still think I think the parts that were great, but I think 75% of it was just build up, and from Stephen King, that's not what I enjoy reading. So this one is going in. This one is going to go in memorable, probably below on writing, and I'm actually going to move later down to oh yeah, I read that, just to even out the playing field, and I think that's a bit more accurate. The second Stephen King book I read, the one I read after Pet Sematary, the one I picked up and thought, oh, I'll read this Stephen King, The Institutals. I really enjoyed this book when I read it. And, everybody says it's like Stranger Things and that Stephen King can't write for teenagers. Well, I think it was very memorable. I think I'm going to put it at the top of the memorable category just because it doesn't have all that, the same gravitas and the same meaning as the ones up in the top 2 tiers. Speaking of books with gravitas, we have 11/22/63, straight up there, boom, no questions asked. I think these two are pretty interchangeable. They stand in 11/22/63, but I think I actually enjoyed this one more. These 3 really could change, because I really enjoy the romance in 11/22/63, and you don't really get that same classic level in The Stand. It's a bit more fucked up in The Stand when it comes to romance. Heading into the last half a dozen, we have Salem's Lot. Another controversial opinion. If you saw what I read in 2023, it is going down. It's just that's where I'm putting it. It's like the second or third book he ever released, and let's just say I don't think he hit his stride yet. Same as his debut, Carrie. It was memorable, but about the same level as Joyland. I'll put it there, just to give it some respect. But yeah, Carrie, obviously you remember the iconic moments, but not much else. I cannot tell you one thing from Salem's Lot. Actually, I can tell you one scene. And if you want to hear spoilers, then too bad, I'm not going to do it. So, go form your own opinions on all of these books. By the way, the top tier alone is like 3,000 pages for 3 books. Easy, one day read, for sure. Gerald's Game is my favorite unpopular Stephen King book. Like, when you think of the greats, you think of the three in the top row, but Gerald's Game was the scariest bullshit I have ever read, and the movie, scariest thing I've ever seen. Still terrified of all that shit today when I even think about it. It's going up in the atomic bomb in a good way category. Dolores Claiborne. Now, that I remember that book because of how it was written and the format, and I do actually remember what happened in it. So I'm gonna put it above here. And poor Joyland just keeps getting pulled down, but the more I look at it, I think this is better. The Wastelands, second last, third book in the Dark Tower series. I am going to stick the Wastelands. Holy moly guacamole. At the bottom of holy moly guacamole. But why am I being so serious about holy moly guacamole? Anyway, that's where I put it. And last but not least, there's a reason I left it till last, because it has one of the coolest cover designs. The cover design, I hate to break it to you, was the most interesting thing about the novel. It was aimed at children. Just very, oh yeah, I read that, I guess. So there we are, at the end of the tier list. I had such a fun time doing these kind of chill videos, so if you want more, let me know. If you want to see more, you can check this video out, which seems like it was filmed like 3 months ago, but it was like more than a year ago. It's just crazy. Let me know what your favourite Stephen King books are, and remember, these are just the ones that I've read so far. I of course plan on reading more, so maybe I'll do an updated tier list. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to do the YouTube things, and bye.